That Friday evening, rain drizzled gently as Daniel stood nervously outside a small cafe, clutching a paper bag. Inside was a modest gift, a delicate silver bookmark shaped like a feather. It had cost him his last $10, money he really could have spent on groceries, but he wanted this night to be special. For years, Daniel's life had been defined by sacrifice. As a single father to his 7-year-old daughter, Emily, every decision he made revolved around her. He worked long hours as a mechanic, his hands always stained with grease, and his wallet always light, but his heart was full of love. Friends had urged him to start dating again, but he'd always said no. That is until Emily herself convinced him. "Daddy," she had said one night, her tiny head resting on his shoulder, "you're always alone. Don't you want someone to smile with?" Her innocent question tugged at a part of him he had long buried under responsibility. So, when a coworker set him up on a blind date, Daniel hesitated, but then thought of Emily's words and agreed. And now, here he was, his best shirt ironed, his shoes polished, his nerves a total wreck. He worried the woman would judge him for being broke, for being a father, for not being the kind of man who could offer fancy dinners or trips abroad. All he had to offer was himself, and the little feather bookmark he hoped would make her smile. Inside the cafe, seated by the window, was Claire. To the world, she was the CEO of a thriving tech company, a woman of influence and unimaginable wealth. But to herself, she was just lonely. Money had given her everything except genuine companionship. Her relationships always ended the same way, once men realized who she was. They either became intimidated or started using her for her wealth. So, when her friend suggested a blind date, she agreed, but on one condition, that her status remain a complete secret. When Daniel walked in, she noticed him instantly. There was something different about him. He wasn't dressed in luxury, but in sincerity. His eyes carried a warmth, though his posture carried the weight of years of burden. As he approached, he gave a nervous smile and extended his hand. "Hi, I'm Daniel." She returned the smile. "Claire, it's so nice to finally meet you." The conversation flowed easily at first, just awkward small talk about coffee and the weather. But soon, it deepened. Daniel spoke about his daughter, his pride, and his purpose. He didn't hide the truth of his struggles, only love. Claire listened, her heart softening with every word. No man had ever spoken to her with such raw honesty, without trying to impress her or embellish his life. She admired him deeply, though she kept her own secret locked away. As the evening wound down, Daniel pulled out the little paper bag, his hands trembling slightly. I know this isn't much," he said, his voice low, "but I wanted to give you something. Just to say thank you for tonight." Inside was the silver feather bookmark. Claire's eyes welled up. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't grand, but it was thoughtful. Most importantly, it was real. "No one has ever given me something like this," she whispered. Daniel chuckled nervously. "It's probably silly, I just thought. You mentioned you love reading, and I figured maybe this would mean something." Claire held it as if it were made of gold. "It means more than you can possibly imagine." They walked out together, the rain still falling lightly. At the door, Daniel hesitated. He desperately wanted to see her again, but fear gripped him. Would she really want a man with nothing but a child and a mechanic's wage to his name? Before he could let his doubts win, Claire placed her hand gently on his arm. "Daniel, would you like to see me again?" His eyes widened in surprise. You'd want to?" "I'd love to," she replied with a warm, genuine smile. From that night forward, their lives began to intertwine. Daniel introduced her to Emily, who adored Claire instantly. Claire joined them for park picnics, for bedtime stories, for the simple joys that money could never buy. And slowly, Daniel began to see a future he thought was impossible, a future where his heart wasn't alone. It wasn't until months later that Claire finally told him the truth. One evening, as they sat watching Emily draw pictures on the floor, she turned to him, feeling a nervousness she rarely ever felt. "Daniel, there's something you should know. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm not just someone who loves books and coffee." Daniel was stunned. For a moment, a heavy silence stretched between them. He thought of the nights he had skipped meals to feed his daughter, of the last $10 he had spent on that bookmark, of the vast chasm between his world and hers. But then he looked at her. She wasn't a CEO in that moment. She was the woman who laughed with Emily, who cried at bedtime stories, who accepted him completely without judgment. "I don't care about that," he said softly. "I just care about you." Claire's eyes filled with tears of relief. For the first time in her life, someone saw her not as a millionaire, not as a businesswoman, but simply as a woman worthy of love. Months later, at Emily's school recital, Daniel sat with Claire's hand in his, both of them cheering louder than anyone else in the room. He realized then that love isn't measured by what you have it's about what you give. And that night, when he had spent his last $10 on a simple gift, he had unknowingly given Claire the one thing she had been searching for all along: genuine, unconditional love. And she, in return, gave him the greatest gift he never thought he'd find again: family, laughter, and a future filled with hope. This story reminds us that true love isn't measured by wealth or grand gestures, but by sincerity, sacrifice, and the willingness to give from the heart. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. And do you want to forget to subscribe for more content that makes you believe in the good in the world? See you in the next video.